Hi everybody, so let's check into chapter 7 and 8. I'm going to do a quick recap because, as we said, I had forgotten that we didn't have time to see those in class. So I'll try to do one video for 7 and 8, try to go a bit quicker, and then a separate video for 9 and 10. Chapter 7, there's not much to look at. Chapter 7, we're basically exploring, Greg is exploring the mystery about Tommy's famous fortune, right? Which is a question usually a lot of students have. Do we think that, what are our theories of where Tommy got his money from? So, right off the bat, first sentence of this paragraph, very important here. It says, the first time Tommy gave Sandy a check, Sandy was certain it would bounce. Now, when we're talking about money, when you say something bounces, c'est rejeté. So, for example, when it says Sandy was certain it would bounce, basically we're saying that Sandy is certain that Tommy does not have any money in his account. So the check, is just going to not give him any money, basically. Sandy was so sure of this that he made a wooden nickel joke with the teller at Tommy's bank. The teller, though, donc le banquier, told Sandy not to worry. What do you mean? Sandy asked. This account, the teller said, it's a bottomless pit. So this is interesting on 2 points. First of all, try to imagine you're going to the Raiffeisen or the UBS here, and you make a joke with the guy who works there. You wouldn't expect his reaction to be, don't worry, this guy has so much money, you're going to be fine. So already it shows us that it's probably not the first time that somebody is making a joke or referring to the fact that Tommy looks like somebody who shouldn't have a lot of money. So that's the first thing to note. And the second, what he's saying, the guy who works at this bank says, Tommy's account is a bottomless pit, like a trou sans fin. That means it's not, he doesn't just have, he's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of money. So again, where did he get it from? This is the whole mystery of the thing. Page 103, what we find out is that Tommy actually asked Greg to get Chris R. to come back to redo the scene, the famous Where's My Money scene that they shoot on the rooftop. Now, what we saw in the final product is the scene, the second scene. The first one, they actually shot it in the alley scene. Remember, like the alley where they're playing football. So Tommy has this bright idea that he wants to redo it on the roof. Now, of course, everybody's thinking, why? Why are we redoing it once we already have it? And he says it's more dramatic on the roof. And he even wants Chris R. to shoot a gun in the air. On page 103, the scene, it turns out they're not allowed to shoot a gun on the roof because of blanks, des balles à blanc, which are dangerous, and Sandy doesn't want to deal with that, so they have to cut that idea. So already Tommy's a bit, he's bummed, he's disappointed. Tommy and Greg come on the roof, they see him, and then they run towards Chris R. and basically just push the gun out of his hands, right? We've talked about this before. Now, if you go on page 103, at one point, the actor who does play Chris R. gets upset with Tommy. He says, if you're going to grab my arm, really fucking grab it. You're jumping on me like a pussy. With that, he headed off to shout some more expletives. So he, again, fully in character, just goes off to the side and he's like, "Hurrah," and he's really upset. And then Tommy goes, my God, he's like monster. So see, even Tommy's kind of scared of him. Now he's going to be even more scared of him because after this, Chris R. is going to come see him and say, listen, I had to buy my own boots because I asked for the costume to give me some boots for the scene. You guys didn't do it, so I brought my own boots, and you stepped on them so many times that they're ruined, so you have to pay for my boots. And Tommy just goes, no, unacceptable, and he starts, making a scene. Chris R., actually, the actor, actually intimidates him enough into finally getting him to pay for his boots. So he's actually, now he's out of character, but he's still intimidating enough to actually scare Tommy. Interesting thing to note on page 105 at the top here, Greg says it's fascinating to see that Tommy can spend so much money on some things, and on other things that are cheap, he'll make a scene. Because basically Chris R. is asking to pay for boots that are probably like $80, right? Which is nothing. When you consider that, what we find out is that it cost the production $80,000 to reshoot that scene on the roof. A scene which, by the way, they already had. So a useless scene that they didn't need, $80,000. No problem, right? He spends that money. But $80 for a pair of boots? No way, unacceptable. Bottom of this page, we talk about the producers on this movie. There are three, Tommy, since the beginning of this book, and when we talk about it, he always says, oh, producers want this, producers don't like this. That's why they replaced Mark. They said, oh, no, producers want to see somebody else. Now, who are the producers, right? That's the question. And what we find out on page 106 is that there are three people listed as executive producers. The first one is Chloe Litsky, who is the woman who was talking with Tommy on the phone when they were going down to the James Dean road trip. The second person is Drew Caffrey, who it says here, with whom Tommy became close soon after moving to San Francisco, who had been deceased for years at the time of the film's production. So, one of the producers is an old lady who's stuck in a wheelchair, who has never before or after worked in movie production at all. The second one is somebody who has died a long time ago. So, clearly he's just adding names of people that don't mind having their names on this. But do not be fooled. The only producer of this movie is Tommy. So the whole money comes from him. Last page of this chapter, of course, people are starting to, there's a lot of rumors going around in regards to where Tommy got his money. Now, one that we often hear is the money laundering scheme, right? Le blanchiment d'argent. A lot of people like to think that that's where Tommy got his money, and that's why the movie cost so much. But as Greg says, here's the thing. The last person I would ever entrust to oversee any part of any criminal enterprise would be Tommy Wiseau. Makes a lot of sense. If you're a criminal, the last person you would want to be associated to is Tommy Wiseau, right? Who is very weird and who does things, out of character. Also, second thing, let's say you're like this big mafia boss, right? And you give your money to Tommy and you say, okay, arrange-toi pour faire disparaître l'argent. The last thing you would want is for him to make a movie, right? Something that attracts attention. You would want to be hidden. So it makes no sense that it would be something criminal. So chapter 8 now, called May All Your Dreams Come True. So at this point, Greg is driving to LA to finally live in Tommy's apartment. So he's all happy, the start of a new life. And of course, he gets to the door, he goes to turn the handle, doesn't work. The key, not the right key. He says on page 109 here, this was quite obviously the wrong key. Tommy gave me the wrong fucking key. So Greg, all his hopes, he was starting a new chapter in his life, he was all excited. He gets there, and the most Tommy thing of all, not the right key. Isn't surprising when you consider that he has, this huge keychain, of keys. Probably gave him the wrong one. So he ends up sleeping in a very trashy motel in LA. There's all these hookers and prostitutes and drunk people who are like yelling at him and he can't sleep. So obviously not a great start to his LA life. The next day he goes to, he manages to get into the apartment. He sets up his phone and he actually sees that he's gotten plenty of calls from agents. So out of all these agents who call him, there's the Iris Burton Agency, which is one of the biggest, at the time, was one of the biggest agents that you could have. So they give him a call. So he replays the message plenty of times because he can't believe it. As he says here, this was my Harvard acceptance letter. This is on page 112. Harvard, he's referencing, a lot of people, it's one of the most prestigious universities in America. So he's basically saying this is the letter I was waiting for to be accepted in this community. So he meets with Iris Burton, and she says, listen, we'll represent you, and we'll try to get you into a couple of auditions and things like that, which he does. He ends up going on a lot of auditions. This I don't want to spoil anything, but this is clearly the highlight of Greg's acting career. In terms of, at this point, he's on a high that, he's represented by a good agent, he is going to a lot of auditions, and he's even going to get his first role. His first role, which is to be in a movie called Retro Puppet Master. Now, Retro Puppet Master is a movie where, if you go on page 122, he says he shows up to the audition. Even less heartening, though, was that the audition called for a British accent, which I couldn't do, but I could do a French accent. The character actually was French, and I assumed that they had asked for a British accent because it was usually easier to find a young actor able to do one. A good French accent, I thought, would be my ace in the hole. So he's going to audition for a role for a character called André Toulon. Ooh. And basically, he thinks, avec un nom comme André Toulon, right? The character has to be French, even though they're asking for a British accent. So he shows up to the audition, and instead of doing a British accent, he does a French accent. He does the audition, and they immediately say, "Do you have a passport?" Like, they loved his audition so much, they immediately give him the role. Now, I want us to just take a second here to note that whatever our opinions are on Greg Sestero, on The Room, whatever, this is a big moment in an actor's life. The moment that a studio gives you a movie, that they say, listen, you are the main actor in this movie. I mean, that is, not many people get that. There's some big actors who still have never had a movie that is centered on them, on their character. So to Greg's credit, this is amazing for him. Now, I will leave in the description, I'll leave a link to, so that you can see what that movie was for yourself. I don't want to judge. It's very série B, as we say, a movie. It's this weird kind of horror movie where puppets come to life. Anyways, whatever we think, it's amazing for him, great for his career. At this point, he's thinking it's the first step in the pyramid. I'm going to go to the top now. At this point, we're at Christmas. It's Christmas time. And he's alone in Romania because this movie was filmed in Romania. And he gets a telegram, knock at the door, and somebody says, "Telegram." He opens it, and it reads, page 126, "Merry Christmas. You are a special person. May all your dreams come true. TW. I still don't know how Tommy found me." Now that's interesting because, who knows where Greg is in the world right now? Not that many people. How did Tommy get that information? Another mysterious thing about Tommy that we could, debate about for a while. So those are the two, I went over them pretty quickly, but that's the gist of it. Now, I'll put the link in the description below for Saving Private Ryan, which is a movie about le débarquement de Normandie, and you'll see the scene is very technical. There's boats coming, there's explosions, there's a guy who's looking for his arm on the floor. You have to think this is a massive thing to shoot, and it took 2 weeks, and it took the same amount of time for, Chris R. on the roof, "Where's my fucking money?" Same amount of time. So when people are wondering why did this movie cost so much, because it takes 2 weeks to shoot a scene that should take 2 days. So that's it for chapter 7 and 8. I'll do 9 and 10. I'll try to do today. If not, it'll be there tomorrow. There's some discussion questions below that I would like you guys to answer. And if you want to, answer somebody else's comment, things like that, try to get the discussion going. The point is that you guys are still involved in English and following along. All right, so that's it for chapter 7 and 8. See you in the next video.